What is Sharia actually? We should understand the Sharia. The Sharia is not like what radicals and terrorists interpret. The Sharia is not Habib Rizik Shihab, what Habib Rizik Shihab emphasized. The Sharia is not what MII, Majlis Mujahidin Indonesia, disseminated. The Sharia is the Sharia. Sharia literally means path to the waterfall. And in its strictest definition, Sharia means a divine law as expressed in the Quran and Muhammad's example. So it is very abstract, the notion of the Sharia. But Sharia is used normally to refer both to the Islamic system of law and the totality of Islamic way of life. This is the Sharia. From the theoretical perspective, the Sharia is, in the end of the day, actually the total sums of Islam's synchronic and diachronic history and the integral part of Muslim living experience. We cannot also reduce and simplify the meaning of the Sharia into something quite essential. Some reformers and activists try to say simply Sharia as the kind of the basic principle of universal civilization, containing the notion of justice, the notion of equality, the notion of human rights, and so on. It is not the Sharia. Maybe it is part of the Sharia. The Sharia is the total discourse running through the history of Muslims and human beings at all. The theoretical and legal principle of the Sharia and its textual narratives were constantly reproduced and recreated. So, if anybody or any groups in our society try to claim to find the final word of the Sharia, it is obviously false claim. But indeed, we try to find the essence of the Sharia. So, in the very rich materials written by classical fuqaha, mufti, and so on, actually, we should understand that there are 5 principles of the Sharia as the guidelines to understand the message of God and the Prophet of Muhammad. The 5 principles of the Sharia are Hifzuddin. Everybody studies in Islamic law faculty knows exactly about these 5 principles of the Sharia. Hifzuddin, the protection of faith. I intentionally use the terms faith here to translate the deen instead of religion. And then the result of this principle is that we should care and protect the freedom of faith. And then Hifzun Nafs, the protection of life. Life is very important. We should protect life. There is no any reasons, any legitimacy to remove life from the surface of the earth. No one has the legitimacy. Even the ruler, even the government, hakim or whatever, they don't have any legitimacy to remove life. The third one is Hifzul Aql, the protection of thinking. We should have the freedom to think in the guideline of truth, in order to find truth. And then Hifzul Mal, the protection of property. And the last one, Hifzul Nasr, the protection of human dignity. But from the very abstract Sharia, we now go into specific concept of classical fiqh, especially concerning jihad. What the classical fiqh texts say about jihad? And what is jihad actually? Jihad's word, there is an Arabic word. It means to strive, to exert oneself, to struggle. And it has a basic connotations of an endeavor toward a praiseworthy aim. It is a very general meaning of jihad. So, the jihad, the doctrine of jihad in the faith, is not simply what the Prophet Muhammad said in the Hadith, or what the Quran said, but many teachings in the classical faiths and also in the doctrine of jihad itself were the legacy of the free Islamic tribe. And before Islam came to Arabian Peninsula, war was the normal state. If it is not in the situation of war, it is not normal. So war was normal situation. And the normal situation, which is a war, ended when two tribes or two groups had concluded a soul or truce. So this is quite different situation in compared to the situation that we have today. Before Islam came to the area and bring a new civilization, the war was the normal state. But also, when we try to open the Holy Books, Quran, and the collections of the Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, we will find the Prophet lessons of conduct in war. Permission to make a raid without an ultimatum, for instance, which is a little bit problematic when we compare with the international humanitarian law. Justification for the use of stratagem in war, desirability of bringing for victory at the time of confrontation with the enemy, but also one of the Prophet lessons on conducting in war is the prohibitions of killing women and children. The Quran, from the Hadith, and the examples of the Prophet and Sahaba, we now become aware of what is called fiqhul jihad. The first comprehensive treatise on the law of jihad were written by Al-Awza'i, died in 774, and by Muhammad. There is also rules concerning captives. How should we behave when we deal with captives? Like discussed by Ibn Rushd extensively in his book. According to Ibn Rushd, most scholars are agreed that various policies are open to Imam. So Imam plays very important role to determine the fate that will happen to captives. Imam or head of state, presidents in our country, for instance, he might pardon them, enslave them, kill them, or release them either on ransom or as zimmi, in which latter case the released captive is obliged to pay full tax or jizya. Some scholars, however, have suggested that captives might never be slain, might never be killed. Captive cannot be killed, according to some opinions. Especially Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad al-Tamimi. And according to Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad al-Tamimi, this was even the consensus or ijma of the Sahaba. So Sahaba, in their practices, when they were involved in war against the enemies, they never slay the captives. But the Prophet himself would, in some cases, slay captives outside the field of the battle, while he would pardon them in others. This is depending on the situation. Controversy has arisen concerning the question who is entitled to grand aman. Everybody is agreed that Imam, of course, the president, the ruler, the head of the state, is entitled to do this. Majority of scholars are of the opinion that free Muslims, males, are also entitled to grant. See, if we were Muslims, but not the case with women and slaves. Women and slaves cannot grant the status of aman to any captives. Those who are not allowed to slave, this is also discussed in the Bidayah Ujrahi by Ibn Rushd. Scholars are agreed about the rule that it is forbidden to slay women and children, provided that they are not fighting. As long as women and children are involved in fighting, they are not allowed to be killed. But there is a controversy about the question whether it is allowed to slay hermits, cebol, the blind, the chronically ill, the insane orang gila, those who are old, orang tua, and unable to fight any longer, peasants, petani, and serfs, pengembala. Malik, Abu Hanifah, and his pupils profess that it is not allowed to slay them because they are not combatants, they are not involved in fighting. But Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i said it is allowed. What is lesson that we can learn from the fiqh jihad? The fiqh jihad in classical fiqh books is concerned with the rules in time of armed conflict that are similar to what is governed in contemporary humanitarian law. Contemporary humanitarian law seeks to protect persons who are no longer taking part in restricted methods and means of warfare employed and resolve matters of humanitarian concern resulting from war. This is the lesson from the classical fiqh jihad. And what I want to suggest in my presentation is that the rich materials and the diversity of opinions on jihad in the classical fiqh should be explored again, should be revitalized, in order for us not to be trapped in very narrow understanding and interpretation of radicals and conservatives. For instance, jihadism, the doctrine of jihad developed by Ayman al-Zawahiri that inspires the radical all over the world. Ayman al-Zawahiri and other ideologues close to Bin Laden expanded Yogyakarta Azam original goal to defend the Muslim community from the attack of infidels. They broadens the meaning of jihad to include a permanent armed struggle anywhere against any infidel operation embodied in the so-called Judeo-Crusader coalition led by the United States. One of the traits and paths in Al-Qaeda is that jihad will last until Judgment Day, between the just and the unjust, in every time and place, with the permission of supreme leaders or without one. While in the classical texts, it is quite clear that jihad should be under the permissions of an authority or an imam. The jihad is accomplished by a single individual or by more and will not be stopped by the tyranny of the oppressors or the defeatist of the demoralized. This is a very dangerous jihad. Jihad that can legitimize any terror attack anywhere, anytime. Again, any enemies, they do not consider who are the enemies, combatants or not combatants. It is just allowed according to this specific interpretation of jihad. I think we should try to stand up together in order to challenge those very tendencies interpretation and come to the essence of the Sharia that bring peace and justice to a human civilization. Thank you very much.